Let's Get To presents Goodwood.
And welcome to Let's Get To's Good Wood. This is a new show that has been born out of an old segment that used to appear as part of our larger weekly episodes. We've been doing some talking down here at Let's Get To. We're going to be streamlining the show a little bit, and we wanted to do this show sort of separately from the main Let's Get To broadcast because we wanted to be able to be quicker. We wanted to be able to respond to breaking news in Major League Baseball a little bit faster than we did before when we were waiting to get all the things together. Now, so in this episode, we're not talking about anything new, no breaking news. In fact, we're going to be talking about old news that's really fake news. And that is buzzers up the shirt. Now, look, the buzzer thing has become everyone's favorite conspiracy theory. It has become the QAnon of the MLB. It has become 9/11 was an inside job. It has become that you didn't really land on the moon. It has become that favorite conspiracy theory, and I can't actually imagine anybody believes it, but it's out there. The buzzers didn't happen, and there is no reputable media outlet that continues to promote the buzzers as being a reality. I know that there's someone's favorite guy from New York who believed it, then he didn't believe it, and now he believes it. I don't know. He's like the Al Gore of stuff. But the buzzer thing didn't happen. But what we saw in Houston this past weekend, where, look, let's be honest, the Yankees won 2 of 3. And if that's the Garrett Cole the Yankees are going to get, they are not done with this playoff picture by any stretch of the imagination. And let's be honest, the Astros coming off the deck 5 runs down in the 9th inning, really, it came out of this being a series that was good for both teams. Both teams learned about themselves in this series. But then we got to the petty part of it. We got the Aaron Judge's cold thing. We got Maldonado taking his shirt down. We got the jersey ripoff thing. And the thing that hit me was that we're living in a society with two conflicting points of view or two conflicting thoughts. And I don't think any of it's good. One, we're living in a post-fact society. We just are. It doesn't really matter if anything's true or not anymore, as long as the internet or Reddit or Beltron's niece says it's so. See the buzzer thing. See that the election was stolen from Trump. I can point to you all of the information that says it didn't happen, and you're going to believe some guy on YouTube in his mom's basement hanging out in his bathrobe that he probably hasn't washed in like 6 months, and he's got 18 different types of mustard stains. Sorry if I offended you, but I'm not. That's the reality that we're in. We don't believe that vaccines work. We don't believe that the earth is round. We don't believe any of this stuff because we've somehow boiled down to say that our individual experience is what matters the most. And as long as I don't see it, it can't be real. Or if I don't see the proof that it's not real, it must be true. And then you dismiss all the evidence laid out in front of you. I think about the election a lot because I have family members who will bring up, what about this? What about that? And I'll say, listen, let's admit both media is flawed. I've got 60 court cases, including Republican judges, that said it didn't happen. You've got a guy on YouTube. And that's what this has become. We are living in a post-fact world, and baseball doesn't matter. Baseball is unimportant. But if we can't even agree on some common truths, we can't even agree on the idea that the buzzer is so stupid that if it really... So you want me to believe, if you're a buzzer guy, you want me to believe that they had this high-tech way of stealing signs that only Altuve and whoever was delivering the buzz knew about, which is why his teammates wanted to rip his shirt off. That's what you want me to believe. And I just can't. But beyond being post-fact, we're also living in an incredible petty society, and Astros and Astros fans are blamed for this too. We live in it's like a reality of social media one-upsmanship. As long as I get the last laugh, I can ignore all the times I was wrong before. I can ignore all the times I'll be wrong in the future. All that matters is that serious, that moment, right? I mean, for God's sakes, we have Astros fans wanting to put an asterisk on the Dodgers World Series. Maybe we should stay away from the word asterisk. I believe the World Series is real. I believe that it matters. I believe that it counts. And guess what? If the Astros would have won it in 2020, I believe that counted too. The Astros are not above blame for the petty part of it. We are the team, and I thought it was funny, that scheduled all of our 2019 celebrations for the ALCS the weekends the Yankees were in town. We definitely tempted the baseball gods. So then you have the series of one-upmanship. Being petty doesn't do anybody any good. And I think the solution, as pie in the sky as it sounds, is that we have to decide to be the first one to stop. We have to be the change we want to see in the world. It's the only way that we're ever going to get to the point where we can start having honest conversations about things. One of the main premises I've had about all of this Astro stuff is that they are a scapegoat. They are the quote orange team bad. And Major League Baseball wants it that way. The question you have to ask yourself is why? Just like you have to ask yourself, why do they care about sticky stuff now? It can't be because they're about to have a CBA and they want to devalue everybody's contracts while weakening the union. Ask yourself why. When Chris Bassett indicated other teams were also cheating and he has no dog in the fight, ask yourself why that's what they want, and then you start to actually get down to the truth of the matter. We have to decide that we're going to be the first ones to stop. We have to decide that we're going to be the first ones to say, maybe I'll act with a certain degree of compassion, a certain degree of empathy. I'll contribute constructively to the conversation as opposed to simply going for the social media likes. And again, I am victim of doing that too. So that's the only way any of it's going to get fixed. It's the only way any of it's going to get better. And right now I feel like Tommy Boy wanting to drive my car into the bridge embankment. That's what I feel like right now. Now let's check in with Andy Tom Chesson to see how he's feeling. So we're back here with Andy Tom Chesson on the first standalone episode of Good Wood, and we're going to continue the conversation I brought out in the open. Andy, this is supposed to be a Major League Baseball show, and I guess this will be a Major League Baseball-ish discussion. Why can't we let go of the buzzer? And the fact of the matter is, there have to be some players out there that believe this is a real thing. Why can't we let go of it?
No, see, I don't think it's the players. I think Chris Bassett said it best. The media keeps overblowing this issue. The fans keep buying into it. The players don't care anymore.
Except that Judge made a mockery of it rounding home plate.
With the possible exception of Judge and Gary Sanchez, who honestly was probably trying to catch a ball. And that's what he looks like when he's trying to catch a ball. So I don't know that you can lump Gary Sanchez in there. Judge with the series in Houston, I really think he got caught up in the moment. And if you look at Yankees Twitter, Judge tends to get caught up in the moment a lot, and it backfires on him a lot because nearly every time he does something, he goes outside of his character and tries to show off a little bit. He gets hurt. The team, that he's playing against scores 6 runs in with 2 outs left in a game. There's just a lot of bad things. I don't think in general, I'm sure there are some players who still have a hard on about this issue, but I think in general, the players, to Chris Bassett's point, and I'm going to keep referencing this because this is the most recent quote that we have from a player who deals with not only playing the Astros 27 times a year, it feels that way, 17 times a year, but has Tony Kemp and has Mike Fiers on his team. So he probably has some insight into what was actually going on. And he seems to believe that it's no big deal, and it's no big deal for the majority of players because everybody's doing something similar. Now, when we get into the buzzer issue, that's a whole different ball of wax because you've got John Boy Media, you've got Buster Olney, you've got some other people who are now denying that they had anything to do with it, but literally hung their flags on this idea that somehow Jose Altuve had a buzzer on, defeated the Yankees, advanced to the World Series, then didn't want to take his shirt off because people would see the buzzer, and all of his teammates knew he has a buzzer, but they also wanted to also take his shirt off. This is the same subset of the population, maybe not the same people, but the same percentage of the population who believe QAnon's a real thing and Pizzagate's a real thing. It's this inability to control things that leads you to believe in conspiracy theories. I have no control over the situation, so the only logical answer must be something supernatural is happening. So it can't just be Yankees closer hung a slider, Jose Altuve hit a home run, and sent the Yankees out of the playoffs for the 3rd time in 6 years. It has to be, well, there must have been technology and cheating. And I think a lot of times when you get players involved with this, and again, I don't think there's a lot of players still buying into this, the players are projecting their own issues onto somebody else. And that's deflection. And we can go into all the psychological
It does seem like
ramifications of that. But again, I think it's the media continuing to run with this and stupid fan bases gobbling it up because they just can't fathom that their 27 ring winning championship legacy, best game franchise in all of professional sports could lose a game, much less a series, much less not be in the World Series for 12 years.
it is ironic that Jose Altuve wears number 27.
And he cares nothing about any of those 27 rings. He'll shove them up your ass 27 times.
It does. I guess it's just genuinely frustrating because, and I talk about it in the opening, but it's so emblematic of where we are, where the fact is convenient. The fact is convenient. So I'm going to ignore the fact that it's in fact not a fact. And, we have to remember that this was propagated by John Boy. And I've seen him before. I've seen him go after Astros fans when he claims he had nothing to do with it. He sarcastically added the "not a journalist" to his bio. At what point, though, do some of these media outlets have to start having some responsibility for the lie that has been spread?
I mean, that's the $64,000 question, because it's not just baseball that the media needs to have some accountability for. There's a lot of things that different outlets in the media are propagating that aren't based in fact, but they just keep running with it. This is a subset. And frankly, compared to some of the other topics we could be talking about, it's a very small, unimportant subset, but it hits us both at home and, where we try to find our escapes and some enjoyment in life. I would love to see the Buster Olneys of the world have to own up to what they've done instead of being able to deny it and nobody calling them out on it. Or worse, what's really happening is when they get called on it, they just block you and they don't have to deal with it. And less times people see them being denied for telling the truth or being pointed out that they're, telling lies about something, the more encouraged they are to do it.
How much does this hurt the game, or does it hurt it at all? Like, the very fact that now Dan Patrick is saying that Astros need to quit acting like victims every time they point out the fact that the thing you say you did. The problem is nobody discusses 17 really, because the Astros admit it happened. It's
Right.
almost like admitting it happened took away power. So instead we're going to use this mythical, I'm not even sure how the science would work for what they're talking about.
I still come back to this idea that it's because they beat the Yankees, and the vast majority of the media world centers around New York and identifies themselves as, being Yankees fans, or at least sitting in that city where, even if you were born in Queens, you have the Yankees thrust upon you constantly. And they buy into it that, the Yankees won 27 times, even though they haven't won since the early 2000s. They must be the best franchise. The only way you can be the best franchise is obviously if you're cheating. If they had beat the Royals by knocking, hitting a walk-off home run in the ALCS against the Royals, or against the Rockies, or against any team that wasn't New York or LA, I still guarantee you this would not be an issue. It would be, oh yeah, they cheated, okay, but everybody else was too, so it's fine. Instead, and we come back to the root cause of this entire issue, the media buys into it. They love the Yankees, but Rob Manfred's the one who allowed it to happen. And we can go down this rabbit hole, all you want. Rob Manfred allowed it to happen. Jim Crane allowed that to happen because he allowed his team to participate at all. You look at the lack of blowback that the Red Sox have received because their ownership was smart enough to say, no, we're not allowing our players to participate in your investigation. And so, the poor scoreboard operator had to take the fall. The mastermind.
The world's most powerful intern. Why? Okay, so let's play psychologist then. You're an educated man. I assume you got a degree in psychology. I know you didn't.
Let's go with that. Yeah.
Why do I care so much? Like, why does it bother me so much? Like,
because it's nonstop. I don't want to cut you off, but it's just nonstop. Anytime the Astros do anything good, It's nonstop. And Astros fandom, especially Astro Twitter, has to own some of that because they won't let it go either. Every time Jose Altuve hits a home run, it is literally, let's go find the Yankees fans that we could taunt about this. It is so much in everybody's head that I guess it has become more important than it actually should have been. To the point that you have Yankees fans who are going to play the Red Sox this weekend, and I guarantee you, because those games are in Yankee Stadium, the F Altuve chant is going to happen. Jose Altuve will be in Chicago this weekend, not in New York, but somehow that's still going to happen. And we buy into it, and they buy into it.
You know what it is for me?
Vicious cycle.
The FL Tuve chant for me is another thing I can. It's when I see this in a game UT's not being played in, and it happens all the time, and I'm just like, I hate it.
It happened at a Knicks basketball series. I mean, we're not even talking the same sport.
And I know the joke is rent-free bitches and all that stuff, and maybe that's what it is. I guess let's move on for a second. We are at the All-Star break. The All-Star game was last night. I didn't watch. You didn't watch, so We can't really comment on what happened. I think Ohtani going out the first round is funny, but I want to talk a little bit about just the nature of baseball. Stephen A. Smith got into some hot water, and I know that's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that, or when are we going to accept the fact that baseball is an international game, and sometimes that means the players don't speak English, and you're just going to have to realize that that's actually a good part of baseball, not a detriment?
And I'm probably stealing this exact quote from somebody, but I'm pretty sure Stephen A. Smith has watched 9 innings of baseball in the last 20 years combined. So his hot takes on baseball concern me not at all, because the stars of baseball, back to Roberto Clemente and probably before that, and just people who are escaping my brain, English wasn't their primary language. And you have a host of stars who have run through the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010s, and now into 2020s that don't speak English as their primary language. Now, is it different because it's a Japanese player versus a Hispanic or a Latin American player? A little bit, but he's not the first Japanese player to need Hideki Matsui needed an interpreter. There's been a few that needed interpreters, and that's okay, because to your point, this is an international game. There are more and more countries that have pro baseball leagues than ever before, because it is a game that people see value in outside of this country. And I think a big part of that is just the fact that Major League Baseball is so horribly mismanaged that it had this natural advantage that it has managed to piss away over the last 4 decades to the NFL, to the NBA, and in some markets to Major League Soccer or National Hockey League. Whereas you look in the Dominican Republic, it's the number 1 sport, or 1 in 1A with soccer. You look in Japan, you look in the Korean League, you look in Taiwan, Australia, Poland. I mean, there are baseball leagues in all these countries that are disparate, and they see the value in the game, and they see the love of the game, and they send their best players to Major League Baseball to play. So it's not going to get to the point where Stephen A. Smith is comfortable because he doesn't have to talk through an interpreter. It's going to get more and more international players who want to be part of the best league in the sport from a competition standpoint, maybe not a management standpoint. So, he can rail against it all at once. He can practice his soft racism however much he wants to. But the reality is, Ohtani is a great player and is everything that's right about Major League Baseball right now, even if his pitching prowess is dramatically overblown. The fact that he does it is, a credit to him. But he's a great hitter. He's a great DH. And if he gets better at pitching and he becomes the Babe Ruth everybody keeps talking about him, if he becomes that person in a couple of years, like they're giving him credit for being now, good for him. And I hope every team has a guy like that. And I hope Yordan Alvarez starts averaging 60 home runs and keeps hitting over 300. And I hope that Juan Soto stays 21 forever and gets that endorsement deal from Forever 21. And I hope Acuna comes back from his knee and continues to dominate the National League East. I hope these players from all over the world, all over all walks of life, come in and take over the sport and have fun playing the sport and rekindle some of that love that you and I grew up with, that there's a couple of generations after us that don't have that same level, certainly not as widespread. And I hope that comes back. And I think you get that by having an Otani who speaks Japanese and inspires Asian kids to play baseball. And that's what Stephen A. Smith is missing. But again, he doesn't watch baseball, so his commentary is just about, oh, tune me in.
Last thing then, real quick. You're sitting here, we're a little over halfway through the season. Who do you think is going to the World Series out of the AL and the NL? Just based on what you see now.
The mathematician in me cannot stand the fact that we call this second half because we're 92 games into the season.
Yeah.
And if I divide 162 by 2, it is not 92. So we're a little past that midway point. I think that you look at the current division standings, and I think the American League holds. I think the Yankees make a run to get out of that fourth place hole and eventually get one of the wild card spots, but I don't think they're going to catch the division lead. I think that the Mets have, and my Met fan friends are going to kill me for saying this, I think they've got the East wrapped up, because really the only thing that's standing between them is the Phillies suddenly playing their potential, and they've never played their potential in a decade.
Yeah.
The Central is a bag of crap. I expect the Brewers to come out of that, and I expect the Dodgers to eventually take over the West. But I do think the Padres eventually advance to the World Series. I think they're the kind of team that's got enough talent, even if they don't get to be the hottest team, that are going to be able to overcome people in a 7-game series. But I also think they're the kind of team that can catch on fire at a moment and not just compete, but blow people away. And I would love to see the Dodgers not even get out of the first round of the playoffs. I think right now, I'm going to hold off on the American League pick because I'm unsure. I think the White Sox get healthy, and I think they're going to be a pretty hard team to beat. But, it's kind of a matter of when do they actually get healthy.
So you're not going to answer the question.
I answered half your question, which is better than your politicians.
So that does wrap up this edition of Goodwood. We'll be back next week as the Major League Baseball season will be kicking into its second half.